You're listening to Factual America. What's coming out of all this is that it gets back to a point you were making about each one of us having our own sort of individual, our own sort of newspaper, news media that goes thrown in front of our eyes. And we're becoming so much polarized that, I think it's hard for the average person to know what is really going on these days and what is truth and what isn't.
I absolutely agree. We're in a post-truth era, and I think it's one of the scariest problems that we're facing. We grew up with this in Egypt, where people watched lies being told on television by state media, where conspiracy theories were taken as fact. And to see this happening, and so people are not able to have a conversation about real facts, real truths, and watching this country, which we've always felt quite safe in, watching this country go through this is very concerning.
Yeah. And so, I think there's been some other docs that have come out recently about social media, and forget about people trying to hack or send us political messages. I mean, that's part of these these algorithms anyway, that if they don't have enough of our attention, they're going to send us something that's going to try to get our attention if we haven't been on for a while. Or I think coming out of this, what is your view about big tech, the tech giants, the Facebooks, the Twitters, and others of the world?
I think that big tech has to ask itself what they want their legacy to be in this world. Because I really think that that's all that's really going to motivate them at this point, because you have few companies that are really controlled by a few individuals, who can really make major decisions. And I think what worries me is that they have oftentimes been unable to take responsibility for the wreckage sites caused by their platforms and companies. I think it's like, it's very much to me like the oil companies that we saw 20th century defined by oil. In the Middle East, we saw the consequence of that firsthand. Our lives, in many ways, one of the reasons we're sitting here right now, I could draw you a line that points to oil and tell you how it shaped my entire story of an identity to today, right? So when you have a commodity that is the most valuable commodity in the world, it affects the entire world. And if data has surpassed oil as the most important resource in the world, we can expect that at least what happened with oil will happen on the data front. Yet, because, as Jahan was saying, we don't have these images of, the spilling of the oil onto the pole. We don't have the image of the penguin soaked with oil, or the melting ice caps like we had with the environment, with the consequences to the environment that we saw from oil. Big tech has oftentimes gotten off scot-free because there is, people are unwilling to accept that there is something that can really be influencing them, because that goes against our inherent Western identity of free will, that I am in control of my decisions. I'm not a persuadable. Those people are persuadable. No one tells me what to do. No one tells me what to think. Well, no one tells you what to think, then the entire business model of advertising wouldn't exist, which happens to be the main business model that Facebook and Google control, right? They are in the business of predictive analytics, of predicting your behavior and selling that on the auction floor to anybody who wants it, right? Yeah. And that isn't inherently an evil thing. But when it's left unchecked, when it's left unregulated, when it's left to this idea that somehow they're just going to do the right thing, that's just preposterous. It's just like, it goes against every tradition that we have learned, especially in the United States, about how to hold and help shape, major titans of power in a direction that does not completely obliterate our social contract. And I think that if the new social contract today, I would argue, is the user agreement, then we need a new reclamation of that process to occur, where citizens, government, and the tech companies can agree on what are the parameters of this relationship. What are we okay giving up? Do we have any control of it? Is my personal relationship data just like my likes of what articles I like, just like where my baby, like, is it all one fair game thing? Or can I set some gauges of I'm okay with this being available and I'm not okay with this being available? I want to know that when I'm being targeted by a political ad, who paid for it, and I want to have clarity, and I want to know when this is paid news or real news. Yeah. These are all things that we deserve. And the idea that, that we could just wait for big tech to do the right thing really troubles me, because I haven't seen them do that thus far, and I don't think they have the incentive structures to do so. So that's kind of the clarion call as well in this film and films that have come since, and I think that we took that on first in a big way, and we're excited to see that now other filmmakers are coming in and trying to tell that story in different ways, because I think there's many stories here. Like, I think we, because of our work, gravitate to the intersection of zeitgeist and politics and society, and but that doesn't speak to everybody, right? For some people, a personal story about bullying as a result of this may be far more impactful to getting them to understanding. Or
The Social Dilemma.
Jeff's
fantastic film,
which is more of a kind of anthropological topic story, but it's not really about characters, right? And that is extremely successful for a conversation. But I think it's many conversations, because this isn't a story. What we're talking about isn't some kind of thing happening over there. This is about every single person who has a smartphone on our planet is part of this conversation. Yeah. This is about the basic fundamental system of truth and the validity of truth. And if you fragment that, right, our systems fall apart. Even from democracy to the even functionality of the internet, right? Like the basis of the internet comes from a certification of validity between, this page that I'm typing in is actually this page. If all of that starts to be balkanized, which is what's happening, right? I don't know how our open society survives. And I think what the big tech companies should ask themselves is, what responsibility do they have to the open society? Would they exist without these ideals that came to us after, the world burned itself to the stake in two great wars? We came out of those two great wars with these ideals, an imperfect system of the United Nations, sure, but it's something. And these ideals are supposed to be things that we subscribe to. And would Silicon Valley be the refuge of the world's engineers if those ideals weren't preserved or weren't helpful? Would they have been able to create these companies if these ideals didn't get? So I challenge them and say, you're standing on the shoulders of these ideals and of these ideas, yet you should see no responsibility to preserve them.